I want to welcome, I know we have a few more speakers joining our panel, but this is Investing in Yourself. And I am Lisa Beth Thomas. I go by LB, and I totally get what it is to invest in yourself. A few years ago, I lost everything in a divorce. I was homeless. I lost my business. I wasn't sleeping under a bridge, but I was sleeping on other people's couches. It was devastating. So I am thrilled about this because I had to learn to invest in myself financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in every way. And that's what's so exciting about this panel is we've got a little bit of everybody here, especially with, we've got confidence, we've got it all. So I am thrilled that you all are here. Ida is here and she is my co-moderator. So glad you're here. And so we're going to be bouncing back and forth. What I thought would be nice is I'd love for you all to, we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. I've taken notes off your LinkedIn and things, but I'd love for you to share who you are, what you do, why this panel, why you're here. And then I'd like it to be more of a conversation that we bounce back and forth so that it's not a formal, but as someone says something and you say, oh man, I really want to share something, let's make it like that so people really feel that we're just having a girl conversation about investing in ourselves, if everybody's okay with that. So Ida, if you would like to start as my co-moderator, I would love that.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So my name is Ida. I'm calling in from Costa Rica. I'm the co-founder of an initiative called Catapult X, where we focus on conversation around impact investing, technology used for good, and consciousness. Because we truly believe that behind your investments or behind your solutions as a founder, the intentionality of a motivation must come from a place of deep purpose and from a place of how we can be part of solving challenges in this world that we have right now.
Very cool. Ami.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Ami Tucker. I am a podcaster and host of my own podcast called Tuckered Out with Ami Tucker. And I am super excited about this particular panel because for the first time, I feel like in my life, after hitting 40, after having, 10 different career paths at this point, after having moved 6 times in the past 11 years because of my husband's job, which I'm very happy to support, but tuckered out. And and 2 kids, 2 little kids. And I finally decided just, this last year, I really wanted to go for this. And I invested in my brand, the podcast, and I'm just super excited to talk about that and the journey and why women should invest in themselves.
That's great. That's great. I can't wait to hear about it. I laughed out loud when I saw your podcast title. That's awesome because I think we can all relate to that. Nicole, we're excited that you're here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. So my name is Nicole Roberts-Jones, and what one of my clients named me a few years ago was the Bankroll Your Brains expert, and it kind of stuck, so I am sticking with it. So really what I do is I help women create multiple streams of income from what you already know. And I'm excited about this panel because I've been doing this for 28 years. I said 28. So I'm in my 50s, right? So you don't have to figure it out. But here's what I want you to know. The reason I said that is because it took me 17 years to make profit in my business. So you can either invest sweat equity or cash equity. It wasn't until I really invested cash equity. So let me tell you, sweat equity is working hard is being tuckered out. Hello, right? Right, Ann? Ami, right? It's being tuckered out. It's doing a lot, thinking that you're going to get more. And really wasn't until I hired a coach. That was a 5-figure investment that I started making 6 figures in my business. And because of what I learned, I'm passionate about other women doing the same. And so I'm beyond excited about our conversation today.
That's exciting. Sandra, the voice.
Yeah, I agree with Nicole. That's exactly the same thing. I work with new entrepreneurs to help them launch a business, start from scratch. And 11 years ago, I transitioned from a corporate job into business. And of course, a ton of invested in myself to get here. And I love the fact that Nicole did say that profit doesn't turn overnight. And I think the transition is hard sometimes when the expectation is that, and being prepared ahead of time and investing before you make that jump is so important. So that's, I really feel like it surrounds me is this mission to help people create this economy of care and cooperation. And that's going to need a lot more, conscious entrepreneurs with the best of intentions that actually also know how to create profit. So that's my focus.
Nice. Excellent. This is awesome. I'm already like writing things down and I love it. Alice.
So I was busy raising my hands because I became a coach a couple of years ago. So I run a business and resilience and leadership coaching company, which ironically is why I thought normally I'd go and get myself all dressed up. And I thought, actually, you know what? It's at 7 p.m. tonight. And if we're truly talking about investing in ourselves, and I've just been for a run on the beach, I thought, I'm just going to come as I am. So very similar to you ladies, it's all about helping people grow strong, resilient, phenomenal businesses without burnout, which I think takes a little bit of pain first till we'll actually believe it, that we have to invest in ourselves.
Oh, completely. Samantha.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here on this awesome panel of women. I am a writer, a blockchain consultant, and a product marketing manager at LinkedIn. So I do juggle a couple of different things. I think my story is not unique in the sense that I found myself in my mid-20s kind of having this quarter life crisis. What am I doing? Am I heading the right direction? And did a lot of introspection work in order to figure out that I actually was in the right direction, but I needed to pivot a little bit. I ended up finding the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry, and all of my writing is pretty much geared towards that. I'm working on a book that details the intersection of women and crypto. And I've been collecting stories one-on-one from women about basically how they've, also reached this similar point in their lives, found this new industry, it's early, it's growing, and are really passionate about putting a stake in the ground. So I am kind of this repository of all these stories that are similar to ours today, and just super excited to be here on the panel.
That's great. Well, I'm going to do a quick shout out to my sister. She just texted me saying that she's on. So, hey, Laurel, thank you for being here. She's down in Florida. I'm out of Austin, Texas. And there's been so many challenges. And I think, Nicole, one of you had mentioned, it might have been you, Nicole, that it's interesting right now, or taking the time to invest in yourself. And I think for me, the pandemic, actually, as bad as it's been, but also it's given the time to regroup, to go in and really start investing back in myself. I'm a giver, and it's really easy for me to give. But doing that inner work. I had an ad agency for 15 years. And like I said, I was always driving for everybody else. So turning inward was really important for me to figure out what I wanted. And that's what I wanted to ask you all. What do you find? What are some of the biggest challenges your clients have? Is it time? Is it insecurity? What money? What is it that you find people not reaching that potential and investing in themselves and having the success that they really want to have? And anyone, just jump in.
Well, I'll go. So I know for the most part, are women that are already professional, already successful. And I think it's the guilt of how dare I want more, or how dare I want something different, right? And so for many women, especially moms out there, it's that mom guilt. Like, you're supposed to. It's like, who wrote the supposed to law that we all follow? Supposed to's, right? And so I think a lot of it is us pouring into other people because of the supposed to's. And then we're depleted. We're tired. We're pouring from an empty cup. And so what I really teach my clients is you want to give from your overflow. So that means you got to pour more into you than you pour out so that you can be pouring from overflow. So really, I think that is the big difference for women, is understanding that and not feeling guilty for giving to you, because then you can give more to other people.
Yeah, I think to build on that, there's kind of the power of saying no. I realized in past product marketing roles at different startups that I had so many teams demanding things from me, and I had to say no in order to get, the priority things that are done. But then also in my personal life, in order to reorient myself in the right direction, I had to stop giving to so many people, even if it just meant like putting my phone away and not answering all the texts right then, or being like, I can't call my mom today, unfortunately. I'll call her another day. Sometimes it takes that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I find with my clients too, it's a lot of awareness and the environment that they're in. Because sometimes, especially if you're starting a business and the only role models that you have around you are people that are just purely money-driven, profit-driven, and there's no permission. There's no permission in the environment that you can actually prioritize yourself. It's like their belief system is, when I make X amount of money, then I can take care of myself. But not having those role models that can do that in tandem, not having that expansion is what I find a lot is they're like, whoa, I could do this as I grow. I thought that's when I have money, I could do that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just quick comment. I think also that we speak about that taking care of yourself is not selfish. Having self-love is not a selfish thing. Saying no is not a selfish thing. And really, truly believing and owning that. And then from that place, coming from that, being able to have these healthy boundaries that enables you to come from a full cup. But truly going deep inside and really understand that self-love is not selfish. That's one of the things that I truly use a lot and talk about a lot.
So I actually was thinking about what took me so long to invest in myself and what were my reasons throughout my life, whether it was confidence or whatever it was. And I wrote it down. So I think for me and for a lot of women, I'm married and I'm a mom, and so that comes into play. So I think the first thing was I didn't feel like I had the authority to just take that step to do it. I felt like I had to check in with my husband, even though he wouldn't care. I just felt like, okay, I need to check in and make sure it makes sense. And then I always felt like, well, should we spend money on this, or should we be spending money on the kids, or the roof, or something else? Like I was always like, is this the right time? And then the third thing I was always worried about is, I guess, what was the return on this investment? Like, am I actually going to make it? Like, is it worth it? And so I think a lot of it was confidence and just being worried about whether it was worth it, And then I hit a point, as I got older, where I'm like, you know what? If I don't do this now, I just have to do it now. I just hit a point where I'm like, you know what? I got to do it. My husband has always been supportive. My kids are older. And so for me, it came to the point where it felt right.
Yeah.
And if I can absolutely reiterate that piece about return on investment is, so you asked the piece about clients, and I predominantly coach men. So I'd never actually worked in a female environment. I was in the army for 20 years. So I've never really worked with females until about the last 4 years. And it's been eye-opening, to say the least. And what I don't really understand, because I've not been brought up with people around me, is that guilt you're describing. It's probably why I'm singly too, because I haven't quite emotionally got that far yet. When I'm not understanding, when I'm seeing these amazing women, for the couple of women I have coached, has been, why are you holding on? I think you were describing that guilt. Why are you holding on to the washing basket? Why are you holding on to the fact you need to clean the kitchen? You're on a £250,000 salary, 4 times what your husband earns, and you're still thinking you need to be buying the shopping, etc. And you've got a full-time nanny, so at least we moved her in towards that. So, but just extraordinary of that letting go. And very briefly is, at the moment, I've just been on another discussion at lunchtime. One of the things they're really worried about is the next generation. Because we've all been locked in together, so to speak, with our families, is that mothering, caring side, which is a really strong piece of feminine nature, is that the next generation is now just seeing the mothers doing more chores, doing more stuff, and rather than seeing them running their businesses. And even in the UK, there's the discussion about policy of coming out of lockdown going into hybrid working environments. There's no discussion about childcare, how people are going to cope, all of the other factors that really affect whether or not a family, not just the mother or the family or the father, is going to continue being able to have two efficient workers. But very briefly, from a personal perspective, you mentioned about that personal care isn't selfish, Ida. I was always taught to put others first. You eat last, you go last, but what I had missed was that in team, there is I. So what I always try and encourage our guys is that to make a team, you have to look after you. And when you were saying about return of investment, last week I tried to do too much prior to International Women's Day, got all of this stuff thrown at me till I was almost at breaking point. And I was like, how have I got to here? This is completely hypocritical. I'm telling people how to do this stuff and I'm getting caught in it too. So I switched it all off. And exactly as you said, as soon as I switched it off, the clients were happier because I was then honest. I wasn't turning up frazzled, even though I thought I was fine at the time. And ironically, in the last few months, our business has tripled since I've done less. So sometimes you have to see that to believe it. And ironically, even that lady with the $250,000, role, I helped coach her out of where she was almost at burnout last year. And when she moved companies, they doubled her pay. In comparison to the other company, it was giving her a hard time saying she wasn't producing. So it's also about alignment. I think when you're in alignment, the energy flows, it stops being burnout. And then you don't even realize you're investing in yourself. You feel as if you're investing in the outcome, of which we are a key part.
Yeah, no, I love that. And as I worked through all my situation, I started realizing core fears that I had, of not being worthy or not being good enough, and all the things you're talking about, that confidence, and started thinking about it. I wrote a course on outwitting fear because I had no idea how much fear had held me back. But what you guys were just saying right now, I think about it. You're talking about the next generation. My mom, you got to think about it. Our parents, and I don't know how old you all are, but my mom was born in 1933. She's passed now. But you think about that generation was take care of the man, make sure everybody else is happy. Like you're saying, give to everybody else. But then our generation comes in and it's like, no, it's going to be women's lib and you're going to have your life. And so our one foot was in the, leave it to Beaver, your father knows best. Then the next foot was in, find your own voice. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this next generation, like you're saying, where they're going to fall in that, especially after the pandemic with being at home. But Nicole, when I was reading stuff on your website, I thought it was awesome because you talk about, the multiple streams of income and, having a purpose-focused business. How do you suggest how do people find their purpose in their business?
So I call it finding their fear. So let me explain it real quick so that it makes sense. So that's what you see behind me. So my book, Find Your Fears. So Fierce, you guys all know who Beyonce is, right? So when she created Sasha Fierce, her alter ego, it was at a time in her business when she was being called to her next level, right? When it was time to expand her gift. So before then, she had been on stage with other women, and now she was going solo. And so she made up Sasha Fierce so she could stand in the full power of her gift. So really a call to purpose is really standing in who you already have been. You were born this way. It's getting clear on who you already are. And so there's 4 steps real quick to what I call my fierce framework. The first step is, what are you passionate about? What do you love? Like, what can you do hour upon hour upon hour and never get paid for it? The second thing is, what are you proficient in? Now, listen, these two have to correlate. So you can't be good at something and not love it, or you can't love something and not be good at it. If I use an example, Michelle Obama in her book, Becoming, talked about this in chapter 10 or so. I'm not going to give the book away, but she did talk about the fact that she was a lawyer, great at it, but she hated it. So those two things have to correlate. The third thing is, what problem does it solve? Because ultimately, it's not about you. You're not here for you. You're not serving you. And if you are serving you, are you paying you? Right? So, passion, proficiency, problem. I mean, the last one is profit. Because when you do good work, when you serve people that need you, you should be making money from it. So those are the 4 ways to really get clear on your purpose. And if you're not clear, pay attention to yourself. People come to you every day and say things like, can I pick your brain? Can I run something past you? That's that brilliance in you, that fierce in you that's shining, and people are seeing it. And because we are who we are on autopilot, we tend to overlook it. So that was trying to do it quick. That's answer your question.
No, we're good. Yeah. Well, and Sandra, I know you talk about one of the things is defining success for yourself. And I think that's really interesting because I used to compare myself to other people and want to have their success, but it's about finding that success for yourself. And what does that look like?
Yeah, and getting really detailed with that, because I have clients at both ends. So I have in my group program, I have brand new entrepreneurs that are starting. In my private practice, I work with, multiple 7-figure entrepreneurs that are scaling and growing global businesses. But the ones making, $20, $50 million often get to a point where like, why? Why am I doing this? Like the money no longer means anything because the money is not really where they were going anyways. So getting really clear on what success means down to like very detailed levels. Like what does that mean? Like, so if you do make money, what do you use the money for? And maybe it has nothing to do with money. Doesn't mean you don't still strive for profit. But if you are already not aligned in your business, you're probably not doing the things that are successful to you. So if you can find that balance to do them at the same time, where take more breaks, so you actually throughout the day can be doing the things that you already define as success, you can actually have both. You can have that, external success in your business if you really want it, and have that internal fulfillment as well. But if you don't know what that is, if you're just striving because everybody says this is what success is, and in different industries, it's different. It could be 10 million, it could be 1 million, it could be cover of this magazine, it could be this, it could be that. And that's your model. So you're going to go and execute to get there. And often I work with people that get there, whatever there is, and then they feel really empty. Because like, if this is not it, then there's almost a feeling of hopelessness. Now what if this wasn't it? And really the answer is just spending some time figuring out, what does success mean? And very much what Nicole said, right? It's the same thing. It's like, what do you love? What do you love that you would want to enjoy? Both material, no judgment material-wise, but what do you enjoy doing? What do you enjoy being? What does that look like? I mean, even when I continuously do my definition of success, and one thing I really love is just discovering like even new products. So as much as I don't love grocery shopping as a task, I love to go for like half hour and check, Whole Foods and see what's the new product out there. Taking time out of my day, having the control to book that in, be like, I'm just going to go check out like if there's a new drink on the shelf. It sounds silly, but that's on my list.
Yeah. You all work with leaders, whether they're a leader in their home or, a multi-million-dollar business. What is the impact when a leader invests in themselves to the corporate culture? And I'd love to hear impact on all that. And a friend of mine, Jan Goss Gibson, she was on earlier with the grief session, but she had a client of somebody she was talking to that said, and he had a business, and she was talking about working with them. And he said, I don't really care about corporate culture. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'd like your input on that. And also, again, for leaders, how important it is for them to invest in themselves, and what are the things you've seen, how it's made a difference in their business?
Would I be a good person to kick off for that? Potentially, because I've just had that this weekend. A guy who's just taken over a 120-year business, and it has no set values.
Wow.
I know. That was my response. I was like, I said, right, can you show me your values and can you share with me what your values and standards are? Because we've been through the strategy, all that piece, or I'm picking it up to help him now execute it. And ironically, we ended up going back to the relationship he had with his mother. And don't think we can underestimate the impact of when people say you're the average of the 5 people around you, I always thought, yeah. But now the further up the food chain, so to speak, because I've only been in normal world, so, for 4 years, I know who I'm leaning on. And similar to you, Lisbeth, my, mother was born in 1940. So they're old, they're lucky still next door. But so, my grandmothers were at the end of the 1800s living in India, hunting tigers, literally. So that's kind of, my family of looking at pictures are my grandmother on the back of an elephant. So whilst the man was out earning the living, she was absolutely out doing whatever she wanted. And similarly, I was very fortunate. I had 3 grandmothers just because of the war. Another one had to travel across Europe, where the whole family had to split before to make sure that they weren't taken by the Nazis in the First World War, and hoped to regroup later. She arrived with nothing, but learned how to use the stock exchange, all of that piece. So again, while she didn't run a business, that's made me feel very comfortable going in and saying, right, what are your values? Because as we get more diverse in our workforce, there's got to be something that ties us together, and it can't be finance. So if you've got a standard set of values and standards that you're all bought into, it doesn't really matter what shape, size, variety, color, age group we are, because you know that fundamentally that kind of, the backbone of the business is going to be strong together. So that would be the impact, is if you get the values right, everyone is bought in, even on a good day or a bad day. As the profits go up, as the profits go down, you're driven by
right. And that's a good measuring stick of when you're hiring, the values, if they align with yours. Right. And who else? I would love Nicole and Samantha, all of you. I'd love to hear your input and your thoughts on that, on leadership.
It's interesting, as you were asking that question, the first thought that came to my mind is by example. So if we look at the first leader we all meet, which is our parents, right? So many of my entrepreneurs that I work with, I do work with corporate women too, but many of the entrepreneurs I work with, their children watch them and their children start businesses. And they're surprised by that. I'm like, I'm not surprised. Your child has been watching you, right? And so you give them permission to think outside of the box, lead by example. So when you invite your children into what you're doing, it shows them what's possible. So the same in a corporate environment. I love the conversation that Alice just had around values, because your values show up. So if you don't speak about it, trust me, people can see it, right? So if you begin to look at how do you want people to feel? How do you want people to move your agenda forward? And who do you need to be to help them do that? That really makes a difference in your ability to move someone forward. So real quick story. I have a story about everything, by the way, y'all. So one of my clients, woman, man hired me to coach her, African-American woman, and he told her she was as a Black woman, guess what you are, right? And so she was like, and here's what I said to her. What are you angry about? And she couldn't imagine. She was a leader, but she was showing up at work and she had this bitterness about her, and her boss didn't know what to do. So he found a Black woman that could coach her, right? And so I was like, what are you angry about? What are you angry about? And so to make a really long story short, she was so focused on her career, she had left her family behind. Her husband left, her children were done, her boss was done. So everywhere you are, you show up, all your stuff shows up. So just shifting that, her looking at what do you want? We talked about a few minutes ago. Somebody talked about this, and really making it clear. What do you want? Let's go after it. Do you want to have a relationship with your husband? So what do we need to do? Do you want your children to be happy? How about you hire a nanny and get help? So really looking at all the things, the surround sound that you need to look at and stop ignoring, I think makes a difference in a leader. When you look at everything and look at the holistic experience, makes a difference into how you lead, not just in the office, but everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think to add that I've worked at several startups and I've been on a lot of different teams. And I think the corporate culture can really make a huge difference, not only in, how each individual feels on the team, but the general success of the team and the success of the business. I think there have been startups where the values weren't defined. It was a very scattered culture, kind of like a work hard, party hard type thing that you've probably heard of in Silicon Valley. And people had burnout working till 1 a.m. or they didn't enjoy coming to work, then it means it's more difficult to find quality talent. You're filling roles in that kind of scattered kind of nature. So you can see how the values kind of have this ripple effect throughout the entire company. And I have seen companies go down because their corporate culture wasn't well defined. It wasn't positive. It was very toxic. And then on the opposite side, I've seen startups that, from the get-go, when they were quite small, maybe Series A or Series B, were like, we're going to make sure that our employees have a work-life balance. We're going to make sure that they are set up for success, that we are, yes, focused on the customer and have all these other beautiful things, but our employees are really important. And one specific startup in mind, I saw them grow from 30 to 90 people, and that corporate culture was core, and that carried on. It made it an incredible place to work. People enjoyed coming to work. People did better work, and then more talent wanted to work there because of that. And then they had really talented people, churning out products at a crazy pace, even though they did have work-life balance. And, now they're, about to IPO. So I think corporate culture is so core to success from an individual level all the way up to the entire business.
Yeah, and Samantha, I'm echoing what you said. I've worked in startups, nonprofits. My first job was at Enron, so that didn't work out. That was an interesting corporate culture. And everything you said, Samantha, I agree. And in fact, just to add on a little bit to that, the last few stints I did at some nonprofits and startups, because the leadership wasn't what I valued and wasn't what I agreed with, that actually helped push me to actually invest in myself and start on my own. So.
Very nice.
I just hired a CEO, and in the call for that job, I wrote in a sentence that I feel reflected me, like how I would actually, what people or what individual that will read themselves into this call. And I wrote a sentence that I have to remember it right, like a guide of people that puts ego aside and dares to lead with compassion and strength. And for me, the person that dares to lead with compassion or kindness or vulnerability, that's a person that comes from a place of purpose, or that place of really can stand in themselves with a grit and dares to do so. Because that's super hard. If the motivation comes from the outside and it's like money, 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 or if it's like recognition, 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 you will jump that step of taking care of what we all need, which is a place to belong, to be seen, purpose, meaning. And when you have that and those shared values, and when you have the purpose and the shared values together, people just work harder because they know also what to do. That's good business.
This is why we need more women leaders. So
that's right.
But I think so, and I think there is a shift right now because actually, being able to lead with kindness, I think that's the future of the talent. I think it's the future of the business, sustainable businesses. And so it's a competitive advantage to lead with kindness, would I say.
Yeah.
We need to be careful we don't presume that comes with femininity, with being female, should I say.
Of course not. But it's just daring to be able to talk and use rhetoric, like lead with kindness. I think it helps both men and women to be able to step into that space.
I would absolutely agree. And the reason I say that is because at the moment we're wrestling with almost a senior tier of ladies who did break through the ceiling in the 70s and the early 80s and rapidly pulled up the ladder behind them so that nobody else could come through. And I think communities like this are phenomenal because we are just shaking that tree where those ladders have to come back down again, and we're not willing for those women to go through. And even we've got a thing called the Sanders Sisterhood, which is 2,500 female army officers all on one Facebook group. what could possibly go wrong? When that was first started a couple of years ago, a few people tried to put down younger ones or people that were saying stuff they didn't like. That got smashed out of the park in about the first few weeks. It was like, no, this is an open forum. Everyone has a voice. We must encourage open critique and discussion. And that was my first time seeing that in 20 years of being within the service. Ironically, just as I was leaving, I think you said, I'm sorry, you were saying as far as that we often invest in ourselves. Sorry, I mean, I think that was you. We invest in ourselves once we've got so brutally beaten up that we realize that something has to change. And ironically, the people who've beaten me up have been women. And I'm really pleased to see this to help ensure that we can create the women role models and environment to take it forward. Ida, as you say, it's that compassion, it's the kindness, it's the bringing that out in everybody, and it then aligns the passions for everyone so that you have got that energy, that flow, that purpose of feelings of success. It just all comes together.
But I also think you make a great point. It's not being a gender issue, but kindness and compassion requires self-awareness and self-development and investing in yourself, because otherwise then you have a fake outward kindness where it's like just, oh yeah, great job. And then they go in the other room and they talk to somebody else about them. And then I've been in those corporate environments where you would think, oh, that leader's so kind, they're like nice to you. But if you don't work on yourself, work through self-judgments, work through worthiness, work through all this stuff that would make you react and do that to other people, then you either put out a front of kindness, it's totally fake, and that doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I worked in a primarily male environment in corporate as well, and I had a very similar experience to Alice. It was actually when I moved into the marketing space that the women were vicious, and I didn't know what hit me, because in an environment of men and technology, nobody ever was backstabbing or coming after you. It was just, and all of a sudden it was like, I didn't know what to do. I was totally unprepared for how vicious women were in the corporate environment with each other. So it just, you got to go in, men, women, you just got to go in and do the inner work.
And can I add to that?
Sure.
Can I just add one? What's interesting is to me, it's the difference between doing and being. So we call ourselves human beings, but we're not. We're human doings, because we focus on what do I need to do to get that raise? What I need to do. And even the client I shared with earlier that was angry, her anger was a result of her doing and not taking the time to sit in her being. And I think the shift happens when we take being time, when we take time for ourselves, when we get a massage when we need to, when we sit in our emotion and stop acting like it's not there, right? Or sit with the emotion that's happening with our team instead of acting like, oh, someone's not crying. It's like, let me just walk past them real quick. No. How about, how are you? Is everything okay? When you take the time to connect heart to heart, soul to soul, it makes a difference in just everything. And I think we're seeing, even in the midst of this virus that we're, by the grace of God, coming out of, it's that I think that has shifted everything with us learning how to connect with each other in a different way. I think us continuing with that will make the difference in just every atmosphere we're a part of.
Here in Texas, about 11 years ago, I started with 4 other ladies, and then it grew rapidly, Texas Women in Business, a nonprofit. And we were to have it last June, and then of course the pandemic, it didn't happen. When we're working with the governor's office on an event called Not on Our Watch. And that is Texas is #1 in the United States for human trafficking. And I didn't know that. And most people in Texas don't know that. And what we are going to do when it opens back up, because we're going to have the event at the Capitol, is just what you all are talking about, that women in organizations can be vicious to one another and very competitive. Our goal is that we want to come together and work together, not compete, but come together as organizations across the state. And we're pulling everyone together so that we're all saying not on our watch against human trafficking in Texas, not just one. So we're going to collaborate, not compete. And we're really excited about that, because, normally it's, no, these are our members. Oh no, this is how we do things. No, we're saying, put all that aside and let's save these children and these laborers and whoever. So I love this idea of we come together, and that's what we have to keep doing. I've got a couple more questions, and I want to ask you, Ida, and on your bio, on your LinkedIn or on your webpage, you talk about, I mean, first of all, you have an extremely extensive background in philosophy and history and technology and all these things, but you said you hit pause, that you went out and got into nature and energy and health boundaries or set healthy boundaries. I'd like Ida to start, but I would love all of you to talk about when you do hit pause, what does that look like? And then let's talk about that for a minute, and then let's talk about money. Let's talk about investing in ourselves and money, but I'd love to hear this side of it first. So Ida.
Elizabeth, I'm going to interrupt really quick. I actually have to head out. I have to go pick up my kids. I couldn't find someone to get them. I wanted to say a few things before I had to head out.
Good.
Love meeting all you guys. This is fantastic. Let's please keep in touch. Nicole, I don't know where you're based, but I want to grab a glass of wine with you. Loved you. Love everything you're saying. And I just kind of wanted to end my time here by just talking about what investing in yourself means, what I think it means, and what I've done. And I think it really is about, devoting your resources, your three big important resources, which is time, your energy, and then money, into things that will give you a return of what you want, what you're seeking for. And just, I hope women that are listening really, really lean into this, not to sound like Sheryl Sandberg, but it is the best thing I've ever done. And yeah, I hope all women will do that for themselves. So
awesome. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. So Ida.
So thank you for the question. I'll try to pack it into a little story. I exited this company and I was sitting at my therapist's office, and then he looked and was like, yeah, okay, what are you going to do now? And I was like, well, I'm going to work a lot and I'm going to do da-da-da-da. This was in May 2019, I think. At that time, there was a reason why I was at the therapist. I've been burned out for 5 years, right? I had, to do yoga, I do spiritual practice, but I was still like burned out, like vertigo, cortisol, way too much in my body. Like really, I wasn't in a good place. And then one day, I think this was in May, maybe one day in early June, I woke up and I was like, hey, wait a minute. I don't have to work. I don't really need to work. Maybe I shouldn't work. And it took me so long time to not working, hit the pause button. After a holiday in August, I was like, don't I have any friends? Where is all the communication? Where's the things with the emails, right? And I was really like, okay, this is not good. And then I said no, wait a minute. And then orientate yourself to who's really there, the family, the friends, who's really there, not through job, not through career and all these things. And that journey until now has really, really supported me to find that voice inside that is authentic me. And as to Alice's point, on most of the other points as well, it's and then the money comes because people feel that authenticity. And they want to be part of it, and they want to learn from it, and they want to have it. So for me, that pause button, having that time and going through that, and it was super hard. I lost my identity. Has really helped me to just evolve and be on a different level of business coming from the heart.
I 100% agree. That was exactly, I lost my identity. My business was my identity. All of that was, and going through that, I had to lose everything to really figure out who I was. And since then, my life has never been better. I had to hit the pause. Well, the world hit the pause for me. And now, it went from just being exhausted and working to loving life. Money is flowing in, projects that I absolutely love. And I think it's so important to hit that pause button when it's time. So again, the rest of you, pause button. What does that look like for you to pause? And then we'll talk money.
So for me, I know years ago, I did this exercise that I do with my clients now, where there's 4 aspects of your life. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget from my time. So it's spiritually what you need, health-wise, career, and relationships. And I think so many of us focus on career. to that, we're, like you said, Lisa Beth, we're burnt out, we're tired, we're taxed, we don't know what we want. So for me, every day I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour in the evening. I call it my Jesus time, whether that's journaling, whether that's sitting listening to a spiritual song. But my husband calls my little chair that I sit in, my Jesus chair, right? So I do that every day so that it pours back into me. So that's one for my health. Now, I do not like working out. Let me just be honest with you. I hate it. But I know that I have to do it. So I make myself every morning go from Jesus time to work out. When I don't do one, I feel off. That's Monday through Friday. I don't work out on the weekend. I give myself grace. So it's really taking time to look at, even in relationships. My husband and I have date night every Friday. I have girlfriends brunches at least twice a month. I mean, so it's looking at how do you really define what do you need to feel full and complete? And career, we all always focus on that, but we got to look at the other aspects. I think for me, I make sure that I do that and I have it planned in my calendar every single day.
So it's just it's an appointment with yourself.
Say it again.
Could you just repeat the
those
four?
four?
Spiritual, career,
So
and relationship.
spiritual, health, career, and relationships. And you can call career money, there could be sub, right? But those are really the major four areas of your life that you've got to make sure. And listen, it's not going to be equal parts. People that say work-life balance is not real. It's just not. I can't give equal parts to my career that I give to my husband. I just can't, right? But if I give what I know I need, and I look at what he needs and we agree. So he knows every night at 9 p.m. because I work late. 9 p.m. We're like, what are we doing tonight? We're watching a movie. So he knows what his little window is every day. So you got to be really strategic with everything you do in your life. And then you feel complete. So I never feel like I'm lacking anything because I get to make sure that it's all in there.
I love that you say that, there is no balance because there isn't. There's no way. So I think when people strive so hard to have that equal balance, it adds more stress. Sometimes I look at everything as a season. I have a season, a little extra weight on me. I'm going to have a season of getting that weight off, or I have a season of stress. I have a season of relaxation. So I just look at it as an ebb and flow of life. And so I love that you said that. How about you, Sandra? What do you have for a hit and pause?
Yeah, and for me, it's actually giving myself permission to be more spontaneous because at my core, as I've done more work for myself, I know that adventure, and that is what was before I lost myself for many years. That's the core of my truth. So my morning mantra now is surprise and delight me in the most magical ways. And I let things unfold. And
I love that.
Yeah, and what? Sometimes that does require rescheduling something because you're going to, I look at my calendar and I'm like, I just really know if I'm going to do this podcast or something, it's not going to be good today. Like, this is not something I want to do. And that old corporate mindset of like, that's irresponsible. That's like, you can't cancel. But then I would not be doing myself or that other person a service. So it's like giving myself permission to be more true to myself and be more spontaneous versus robotically timed, which was how I was in corporate.
Absolutely. How about you, Alice?
Well, so hitting pause is still very much a work in progress. I have got as far as trying to have a full night's sleep, and having a bath I'm learning to do, especially when it rains, because then I don't feel so guilty, because then I know there's plenty of water. But ironically, so far, that is the biggest, hardest part, I think, for me, because I've just been forever on a treadmill. So pause is spending time with family, going outside. And I really know I've hit pause if I run a bath and just take time out and don't put the magic machine in the bath with me. It's water.
Yeah, because yours is creating lions in the boardroom, not in the bathroom. Yes, that's right. It's a break.
So,
right.
But ironically, it is very briefly when you're saying, Sarge, about adventure, one of the reasons I take people on resilience retreats and to do their work up in the Arctic or out in the desert or wherever is because to physically get people to take a pause nowadays is so hard. Whereas if I can take them to somewhere that is so beautiful, and the awe effect, I don't know if any of you guys have studied the awe effect, the idea that essentially nature is so big in front of you, we all try and be bigger. Nature makes you feel smaller. And once you're made to feel so small, it puts it all in perspective. And you're like, you know what? this is all just going to be okay tomorrow. And so the more I encourage myself to do that, I go on the beach, it's got these huge vistas, look up the sky, like, I did like the other day when I was just shattered. I walked outside, lift up into the sky and just go, world, what are you doing? And then you get a little bit of divine inspiration and go, okay, chill out, it'll all be okay. And that's what I try and do with my clients, literally take them to the highest building I can find, get them to look outside, go into beautiful places to do their strategy development, and find pause in nature. So, but sorry, Samantha, and I'm West.
No, that's great. How about you, Samantha?
Well, there's, to build off that, there's actually a meditation I love to talk about mindfulness for a second that alludes to that. And it's where, you close your eyes, you think of yourself in your current state, and then you zoom out and you think of yourself in the room. You zoom out, you think of the building or the house that you're meditating in. You zoom out and think of the city. And, this whole time you're remembering how tiny you are, and you get smaller and smaller. And then you zoom out from the city to the country or continent that you're on. And then you zoom out to the earth and you realize how tiny you are. And then slowly you come back in and you just feel so much more grounded and much more clear-headed. And I think for me, I've hit pause a few different times. One of the first times I hit pause, I had lived in San Francisco for 8 or 9 years. I kind of just kept hitting this emotional wall. I had this low-flying, undercurrent of anxiety, and I couldn't really name it or put my finger on why things just didn't feel right. And so I decided to travel and write. I did some freelance marketing at the time to kind of pay the bills as I went. And, I got myself out of my comfort zone. And I think that was the beauty of that. And, I took some next steps, and then I thought I was on the right track. And then all of a sudden, another pause moment came, and one that I didn't really choose. My startup at the time had laid off a fifth of the employees in one day. And unfortunately, I was part of that as a new employee. And, that really hit me. As LB said before, like, I was attaching my identity to my career. And so when that happened, I just felt like I crashed inwards. And so in that pause, I actually decided to go to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I got real with myself. Like, that was the most deep introspective work I've ever done, but it was also the most beautiful. And I was able to really, unravel all the things that had just kind of knotted up inside over time. I was able to, practice forgiveness and kind of reconnect with that sense of compassion for yourself, but also for, everyone in your life, whether whether they're family and friends who you love and adore, or whether they're people who have maybe done you wrong, but like even practicing compassion for them and for everything that has led you to the present moment. And I think reconnecting with the present moment was also just a huge leap forward. And it was then that I decided, okay, my life isn't going to be that conventional. I might not live in one place for the rest of my life. I might not just work at one company. I'm going to have a couple of different things going. And I found this kind of blend that really worked for me between writing creatively, working in technology for a company that is mission driven and that I feel like there's a sense of purpose there, but then also kind of working towards inclusion and education in blockchain, which is something that I feel super passionate about. It's a growing industry. And I think specifically for women, it's an awesome opportunity to, get your foot in the door early and learn something that's going to be implemented worldwide in all sorts of systems. And I think Nicole had mentioned, 4 different things before. And I also have 4 different things. Mine is based on Ikigai, this Japanese concept of, what is your reason for being? And it's this blend of, what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And what can you get paid for? And if you can find something that blends those 4, then you find this kind of clear sense of purpose that hits all different areas of your life. And maybe it's not one thing, for me, it's a blend of writing and technology. And I've kind of, pivoted, had these like minor pivots over time in order to find my sense of purpose. And then I think, as it was said before too, once you kind of get there, the money comes naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk money. I mean, we've got all of you are very successful at what you do, and you also coach people. Nicole, you've got your bankroll to brilliance. I mean, and Sandra, I mean, all of you are amazing with coaching people with money and leadership. So let's talk about investing in yourself money. What would be if you could say one thing to people that are listening, one thing about investing in yourself with your finances, what would it be? One baby step.
I always tell my clients you have to invest at the level to which you want to see the return. So you only reap where you sow. So I always say you want to hire a coach. So whether it's health you're having, you want to go to your next level, whether it's your business, you want to go to your next level, it really is having someone that can help you do more than you're already doing. So I'm always like, I have a new health coach right now. I'm in this menopause thing and it's not cute. My body is shifting. I'm like, what is that? Right. So I had to hire a new coach. I don't like some stuff she tells me I have to do, but if I body to work in this second half of my life, I've got to listen. So it's getting the support, but it's also taking the coaching and actually taking action from it.
Got it.
So that's, to me, the difference in investing is really helping you grow and maximize who you are.
Yeah, but it's taking the action too. Got it. That's important.
I think also it's investing in yourself. That's a big step to your worthiness. If you're going to put money aside and you're going to make an investment that's in you, whether that's, in mental health or physical health or in your business, but it's actually for you to accomplish something you want to accomplish or to be or to feel something, then that investment, that's the biggest step you can take to actually say, I am worth it. This is a priority. And there could be like so many other things that money could go to, but you're going to make that step knowing I'm worth it. That alone, before you even get the help, is a huge deal.
Good.
Yeah, go Samantha.
I was going to say education. I mean, if it depends on where you're at and where you're trying to go. But I think investing in yourself means, reaching out to people if you need their support. If you want to learn something, or if you see someone in a position that you want to get to, ask them. This morning I had a call with someone I knew from college and I haven't talked to in years, but she was like, I am really interested in the position that you're in. Do you mind chatting? And I had a lovely conversation with her. I was more than happy to talk about, my kind of how I got to my position now. And I think people are always more willing to help you out than not. And so don't be scared, take a chance, send some emails out to people you maybe haven't talked to in a while, use LinkedIn, use Facebook. I think people are more kind and willing to help than, scary and competitive. So take a chance.
Yeah. Anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, no, I can just share mine. So I love it's actually mentioning their age here. And I love that it's like, I don't know, there's some strength in that over 40. And I'm 43. I do not work on Fridays. So for me, I invest time in myself. I read books then, so I'm being curious, educating myself, and that's just like, wow, bliss of learning. And then I moved to Costa Rica because I'm a surfer. So here in Costa Rica, I live very, very minimalistic. I don't need much. There's like coconuts out here, and it's like, it's so, and I have the surf. So for me, time is my greatest investing in myself. It's just buying myself time to be able to serve, to not work on Fridays, to educate and read books. So that was a big shift for me.
When you don't work on Fridays, do you put your computer down, your phone down? Do you go off the grid, or do you just not work?
I just don't work. I put my laptop away. I have my phone, but almost everyone is used to it by now. So if I don't answer on the one on Friday, right? But I think because I started to work 80%, but now it's like it's actually easier for myself and for everyone. Like that it's like just this day. Yeah.
Very cool.
Ida, is setting really clear boundaries helps everybody. when you're trying to do half and half, I think you guys were all talking about it earlier, you're not pleasing anyone. And I always gave the example of a battery, that you've got a finite amount of energy. So us talking about it being balanced means that, well, nothing's ever going to be supercharged, but nothing's ever going to be kind of off either. So but like you say, and so setting really clear boundaries, like a day, I think makes a world of difference. And actually, I've got one of my team who does that too. She said, "Oh, Alice, I don't want to work Fridays." And ironically, it's because she runs her own bar. She's also a single, she's also a young mum, and she's doing up 2 houses. She's like, I have to have a time for myself. So first of all, I was like, what? But I need you on Fridays. And she was like, well, but I was like, right, but for after lockdown, we need to get into a rhythm that is sustainable for you. So that is for me to change, not for you to change. And so we've now shifted my expectation, bless her, and it works okay, but it's much easier when someone's very clear. But Elizabeth, you are?
Yes.
I would just like to throw in that I think we should talk about it at every opportunity. I think that the more we can talk about it as women, the better, because nobody's ever talked to me about money, which meant that essentially I have tried to upskill myself. I have done money mindset work to understand what did that even mean. I've been surrounded by blokes who are talking to me about investments and shares and houses and property and all of that stuff. But could I get any women to talk to me about it? And yet when I've gone home, I mentioned about my grandparents, is actually, oh, bless her. Sorry, Nicole. From that perspective is the granny who traveled across Europe, she ran her own share portfolio. So although she'd had nothing, everything she had, she learned how to invest. And what I didn't realize till later was, for example, she bought Bendix shares. We always got Bendix vitamins at Christmas. I just thought they were a favorite of hers. She always took the view that you should invest in things that you love. So I was like, okay, now I understand. So on her premise was, you should always be using something like you guys mentioned, if it's got value for you, it'll have value for someone else. And that was part of her shares piece, was she looked at things that she really valued and thought, well, hopefully that'll mean other people do. I've done the same with property portfolios. I've done up properties how I like them, on the premise that if I'd want to move in, not because it's what follows the trend, happens to be in a picture book, whatever. If I want to move in, hopefully somebody else does. And each property is literally gone within 24 hours of it coming onto the market. And I just think, but I learned that because my mum made an amazing home, and I knew that people always love to visit. You were mentioning about kind of learning as we grow. My other granny used to grow all her own vegetables, make her own beer. So that money finance thing, ironically, came from me making lavender dolls, being at her kind of garden gate and selling stuff from the first age I can ever remember. I never got given pocket money, was never given any money for anything, but I never felt bad. I thought that was exciting because it meant I had to go out and find what I was passionate about. And I didn't mind lavender dolls at that stage. Don't ask me to make them now. All the way through school, I'd work out what did people like. Some people like sweeties, some people, whatever it was. And if you've got that natural nurturing, Lisbeth, you were saying about always wanting to be a giver. I am too. But I realized that I wasn't in a financial state to eternally give. Whereas if I could find a way of nurturing other people's need and finding them solutions, and it was going to financially recompense me, brilliant. They get what they want. I'm getting a little extra. Perfect. Win-win. So I just say, wherever we can, let's talk. Because I ask everyone, what do you get paid? I'm always being told it's a verboten subject. Like you were saying before, Samantha, about people being helpful. I've never had a single person not tell me. Because I'm not going competitive, I'm going to understand. It's so that I can now understand the value of a broker or a solicitor or somebody else's time, because otherwise I have no concept. So I just say the more we can openly discuss it, the more we can understand the stock markets, the more we can understand how things go up and down, the blockchain, the future of money, the future of transactions. If we don't understand the fiscal system in which we are playing, that's very hard for us to drive business forward sustainably, because we risk being caught out. There was a piece today which was, if they'd had Lehman Brothers as Lehman sisters, would it ever have happened?
That's great. Yeah, a friend of mine's husband died not too long ago, and you think about it, but things were separate, and the mess that came from that, and not knowing the financial side of it, it really has taken a toll. And I've known women in business as well who the partners would say, don't worry, I've got this, trust me, I have it, and not knowing really what's going on behind the business bit them in the butt, really did. So I think it's knowing your numbers, knowing your money is really important, really is. Now, as we wrap up, we only have a few more minutes. I've created a podcast called Courageous and Unstoppable You, and it's full of aha nuggets on business, on spirituality, and it's what people have shared of an aha that made a difference. I would love for each one of you to share an aha, again, whether it was spiritually, emotionally, financially, that you went, wow, that made a difference.
For me, it was the first lecture I went on blockchain technology, and I listened to a speaker that talked about kind of the ethos of it and decentralization, and I felt like I was on fire after. And it was like something was sparked, and I realized then that this was something that I wanted to learn as much as I could about, and I felt like I had endless energy to put towards it. And that's when I was like, I have a real passion for this. And I have a passion for making sure that there is financial literacy, especially for women, and that women are in the room for this new industry when it takes off. So I think that would be my aha moment, because I just figured out the direction I needed to move in.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Anybody else, whether, again, business, relationship, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, actually, the big aha that's led me to work with people in tandem in personal development and business development is realizing that when we put limits on ourselves and when we have worthiness issues, it comes down to really the bottom line of believing there's something wrong with us. Because otherwise, everything would just be neutral. You would just, oh, I have this thought, I have this opinion. But once we turn these things against us, is because there's a fundamental belief, well, there's something wrong with me, that's why, and then you've got the health issues, the money issues, whatever it is. So fundamentally working on the worthiness, and that's what I do with a lot of my clients, is kind of get down to that core. It starts to open everything else up, and we become more subjective to it. Then it's like, well, is this a challenge in business or in life? Okay, well, there's ways to get through that, but we're not like bombarded with the beliefs that, oh, but that means something's wrong with me, so then now I'm paralyzed. So just that awareness that showed up one day, like, I have these judgments because I think there's something wrong with me. And I think, well, if I think something's wrong with me, and that's why I'm limiting myself, that's why other people are limiting themselves.
Right. Well, and the unworthiness, you think it's here personally, but no, unworthiness, that follows you in business, relationships, it follows you everywhere. And so when that's got its hooks in you, it messes with you. I know. Yeah, I know. Alice or Ida?
Do you want to go, Ida?
Yeah, sure. I'll really, when I found aha, it's self-love that I'm lacking, and it's self-love I need to find. So I have a practice that I do every evening. I've been doing that before I go to bed, before I fall to sleep, and I've been doing that for over a year now. And I put my hand on my heart and I say, I love you. It could be, vocally out in the room, or it's my spiritual body or my physical body, but just that practice of self-love. And that aha moment, when I figure out that, it was as if the rest of it just fell in place.
Nice.
So that's where I'm coming from, love, and that just expansion of love and a full cup for my work and my friends, my family. Yeah.
Very nice. Alice had to go get something.
Well, Ida, I thought you might appreciate this. I went and bought all the hearts they had. We don't have any shops open because of lockdown, apart from the chemist. And they had a whole bunch of hearts. And because you see this big white heart, which I got at Christmas, was because the same. I've been in the male hustle all of my life, and I've not really understood what embracing our feminine, etc. is. So I'm now working hard, which includes putting hearts everywhere. I hope I'm going to learn it pretty quickly. If not, we'll work out if it works or not. But that piece about self-love, I think there's a lot of tokenism for me of making sure I put stuff around the house to remind me. But anyway, so I thought you might appreciate that for the hand on the heart. I haven't quite got as far as vocalization yet. That's coming. So
It's coming.
You can also just do like this. You don't have even to say something, but just do that,
And I do when I thank people, and it's really interesting to work with for better or for. One of the lovely people I work with is Nepalese, and he always does this or this. And I've spent so much time working with him now, I always do this as well, and from working in a lot of Muslim countries. So where you will therefore press on your heart and as a gesture of deference and politeness. So I was working in Somalia, for example. So as a lady, they would often put their hand on their heart rather than shaking hands or anything else. And anyway, I just, from that aspect, I think the hand on heart thing is really important, and it crosses every, how would you describe it? It covers every culture. I think we all appreciate it. So, sorry, so getting a bit carried away. So I guess
I love that. It's awesome.
So a couple of aha moments, which is actually I've come onto this arena through the 100 Women of Davos, which is the first time I've ever been part of a female networking set, is in the last year or two. So that has been actually the power of us to create positive change is just immense. And that's why I say I think we can turn this table round, where it doesn't have to be the cycle of every generation thinking they're going to change it, is where if we empower every generation at the same time, we're creating a movement rather than a cycle. So from that, one of the amazing ladies that I spoke with a few weeks ago, her piece was what you appreciates rather. So what you appreciate appreciates.
Ah, nice.
I do that on almost every webinar and discussion I've used since, because that's so simple. Whatever you appreciate appreciates. And the other piece, I think, again, harking back to my beautiful grandmothers, is that what you see isn't what you always get. So whatever you see on the outside isn't the same as what's happening on the inside. And like you were saying, Lisbeth, about your friend with the whole, once you've had the demise of one half, my grandmothers worked their little socks off and their hearts out for the whole of one of them was 103, another was a 98, long, beautiful lives. And there was this perception that the men were the ones running everything. Actually, as I grew older, I realized that the ladies had been doing the seats.
Yes.
The ladies had been doing the saving. The ladies had been doing up the houses. The ladies had been the ones looking after the housekeeping. The ladies had made sure they were growing good, healthy, nutritious food for us to grow up with, where now I go around completely confused when people are handing me box things. I'm like, why would you be doing that? That's so weird. So is just never believe that story that the man has control, because it's not that they don't, but it's because so do we. Yeah. And when they say that behind every great man is a great woman, well, great. But so behind every great woman, there's often a great man or another female too. Is how do we support each other in this, and that none of us can go alone and hope to succeed. We're always stronger together, I think, has been one of my biggest takeaways.
See, I always heard it that behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. So I don't speak to
That's a very Texan thing to say, Elizabeth. I feel that's like a Texas white woman.
That's a Texas woman thing to say. Well, I am walking away with what you appreciates. All of this was fantastic. And I know our time is up in 1 minute, but that is a great way to end it. And thank you for your time. And we've gotten great comments. I'm getting texts from people saying this was a great conversation. So thank you. I appreciate it so much. And hopefully we'll be able to do something again soon.
It's on LinkedIn. Look for the line.
Yes, I will. I've got it right here. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.